Today. How's your marriage today? Well, how's married life these days? You know, during the terrible purges in Russia, a woman would discover one evening that her husband wasn't coming home. Instead, he was being sent to a slave labor camp in Siberia for 10 or 20 years, probably forever, because of the conditions at the camps. One morning, he went off to work as usual, and that was the last time she saw him, unless she joined the crowds at the railway station and happened to catch a glimpse of him as he loaded into the cattle cars with the other prisoners. It's a terrible thought, isn't it? And what were his thoughts of her as he began his lonely pilgrimage? Probably both of them thought only of the fine qualities of the other one, and no doubt they were filled with a sudden poignant love for each other. They very probably tortured themselves by thinking of all the things they might have said or done but failed to do. Well, how's your marriage today? Has it quietly fashioned itself into a smooth, well-worn rut? Do you take your marriage and each other for granted? Or do you, like the few wise ones, keep finding new and interesting ways of renewing your awareness of and affection for each other? Ways that keep the marriage young and interesting. I'll stick my neck out and generalize that the great majority of marriages are about as interesting as the great majority of people. A person will give to his marriage the same attitude that he habitually gives to his life. If his life is filled with interest, so is his marriage. If his life is not interesting, he is a fool, and fools don't build interesting marriages. Now let me modify all this by saying that a daily routine can easily form a trap into which just about anyone can fall. The way to keep from falling into the rut of routine and boredom is to remember the principle that anything can be improved upon, and it is the role of the human being to improve upon his life and his world. Think of the great and sudden leap forward our national industry would experience if, on some morning, every working person went to work with the idea of finding some way to improve his job and his attitude towards those with whom he works, and, at the same time, took the same attitude towards his marriage. Just as the sudden influx of new ideas would bring freshness and new power to his job, the same thing would happen at home. The dullness, the routine would vanish. The marriage would be renewed, revitalized. The thing to watch is your attitude toward daily life. If you are the kind of person who makes his daily life interesting, who is constantly on the alert for new ways of enhancing and putting new challenges into things, the chances are you have an interesting and enjoyable marriage. If not, you might give some thought to it. And remember the Siberia story, and do and say the things you should now, so that you will never be filled with remorse if anything should happen. And perhaps I should end this with a comment by Balzac. He wrote, "Love, according to our contemporary poets, is a privilege which two beings confer upon one another, whereby they may mutually cause one another much sorrow over absolute nothing." And this gives you kind of like a thing to check in on, and I mean, it is focused on marriage, but relationships, parenthood, any friendships, things at work. If you're an interesting person and you take your life interesting and you show interest in others, I think all those relationships become more interesting and more enjoyable. So, don't forget that, those relationships are what, bring happiness and meaning and fulfillment to your life. Appreciating others is always, like it was said earlier, one of the most important things. So, make sure you appreciate those close to you and those that mean lots to you, and, take a moment to let them know that and really work on those relationships, especially if you are married or in an intimate one. Everyone have an amazing day. This is the Morning Monk. I'm out. Bye.